Today we're going to be going over our review sheet for univariate, bivariate, and probability. We're going to go over these questions here for your test. So the first question says the table below shows the probability distribution of the number of televisions in each house in a community. So here we have our table with televisions and probability. It says, what is the probability that a house in the community will have at least 3 televisions? So we can see here that it shows X and Y, and you may think, oh, well, I need to find what X and Y are equal to so I can figure out how many will have at least 3 televisions, but you don't. At least 3 means 3 or more. So we just have to figure out how many people have 3 or more televisions. So that's from here to here. Well, I know that probabilities altogether add up to 1, so all I need to do is take 1 and subtract these 3 probabilities, and that'll leave me with how much is left right here in this section. So I'm going to do 1 minus 0.02, 0.38, and 0.23, and that gives me 0.37. So that means that right here there is 0.37 of the probability. And so at least 3, this would be how much has at least 3. At least 3 means 3 or more, so 0.37. Question number 2 is asking us to choose a statement about the sequence below. Okay. The videos had gotten messed up, and so I've already had the answers here, so I'm just going to talk about which one we would choose as our answer and why, and then I'll put up the correct one. Excuse me. A and B both say that the series converges. C and D says that the series diverges. So the first thing we had to do is talk about the difference between converging and diverging. Converging means that it's getting very close together. Diverging means that the values are getting farther apart. And we can see that it's going from 1 to 6.7 to 17 to 26.3 and so on. And so these values, these numbers are getting larger. So this sequence is diverging. So we can go ahead and say that A and B are not our answer choices because the series is converging. So now in both of those options C and D, it wants us to know if n approaches infinity or if n approaches 30. If it was approaching 30, we would see these numbers get very, very, very close to 30, but not actually equal 30. So like 26 or 25.5, 27.2, 28.9, 29.2, 29.7, 29.8, 29.94, 29.97, and so on, and it would get very, very, very close to 30, but not actually touch it. In the first one, it just says to infinity, okay, so we're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, I know this sequence kind of throws us off because this 26.3 looks like it's getting close to 30, but this sequence is jumping at different increments, and we can assume that it's probably going to get higher than 30 for the next term. So our correct answer here would be C, that it's approaching infinity, because the sequence looks like it's going to get to a number much larger than 26 for the next one. The next question that we have here says, when would you use each method of data collection and give a specific example, or define and give a specific example? So this question on your test is going to look a little different than it's worded on your review sheet. On the test, I'm going to give you a scenario, okay, and you are going to have to choose which of these methods of data collection best represents the scenario that we're talking about. The first one that it said was experimental study. For an experimental study, the most common time you're going to see and use an experimental study is if you are testing the effectiveness of a drug or a medicine. So if it was for this one here, it would say company A is is coming out with a new drug or medicine, and they want to see how well people respond to it. So they're going to test the effectiveness of the drug with a regular group and a placebo group and all that good stuff. So if it's saying something about testing medicines or testing drug effectiveness, then it's going to be an experimental study. The next choice would be an observational study. So some examples of what would be an observational study would be if it said, oh, you're trying to find out the growth rate of a plant in X amount of sunlight for X amount of years, that would be an observational study. Or if you were trying to figure out patterns of sleep or cycles, that would be observational, because these are things that you just have to watch, find out the data, and then analyze the data. A simulation would be something that you have to run a test to ensure that it works first. So an example could be a roller coaster. If you were building a roller coaster, you're not going to just build the roller coaster and then see if it works. You're going to create a blueprint of it, probably set it up into a computer system and run a simulation to see how well the roller coaster works. Or another way that a student has given me before is an airplane. If you're learning how to drive an airplane or pilot an airplane, you're not just going to get up in the plane and start using it. You're going to run simulations to make sure that you know how it works. And the last one is probably one of the more common ways to gather data collection, and that's a survey. So this question would look like if it's saying you want to figure out how many students have 5 or more brothers or sisters, what would you use to find out this information? Your answer would be survey here, because we would ask everybody questions, and that's how we would get our information.